So, introducing the Understanding and Using the Enneagram for Homeschool Moms workshop. I'm so glad you're here. I will presently try to not turn on my recording voice and go back to my normal voice chit-chatting with you. I am glad you're here because I find every time I have a coaching conversation with someone, Enneagram is one of the most important tools that I use to understand you when I'm coaching. If I can understand what your core motivations are, then I'm able to tap into that to both help you know what the next steps are in your own healing journeys and also your relationship journeys, and also to understand more about your core motivations or learn more about yourself so you know how to relate to your kids, to your partners, to anyone. And so I find Enneagram profoundly effective. I have dabbled in all sorts of personality profiling systems at different times, and I do find them all valuable differently. But there's something about Enneagram as it's focused not just in describing behaviors, but rather helping us to understand what our core motivation is, why we do what we do, understanding the fears that drive us, or a set of behaviors that are pretty distinct. So the Enneagram is a personality system that categorizes people into 9 types. It's representing a set of core motivations, fears, and behaviors, and it originates back to ancient tradition. But the modern Enneagram is a psychological tool developed in the mid-20th century by Oscar Itzcazzo and also Claudio Naranjo. The system aims to foster self-awareness and personal growth by helping people understand themselves. And if you know anything about me, you know that that is my goal, is to help build self-awareness for you, because it will help you unpack internal challenges. I see this for homeschool moms specifically. It pretty much helps you understand why you want a to-do list, or why you're yelling at the kids, or why you don't want to leave the house and meet new people, or so many possibilities. And I know that what I just shared is not representing everyone, but they are topics of discussion that I have probably just in the last day had conversations around. And so I know that it helps us to understand ourselves. And self-awareness, I think, is one of the most important coaching tools that we can offer ourselves. Why? Because it helps us understand our triggers, or I would rather use the word reactivity, because triggers, I think, should be a word relegated to trauma. But you know what I mean, because it's a colloquial word. Just really means becoming aware of our emotions or stressors or responses to things around us. And I probably don't need to explain to you why that is important. As homeschool moms, because we've got kids around us all the time, we also have reactions frequently. I think Enneagram also helps us to tailor how we're approaching our kids in their learning. And if we understand where our child is coming from, we're able to help them approach their learning based on who they are and what they're motivated by, what their strengths are, where their areas of growth might be. And from personal experience, it was super useful for me understanding my Enneagram 8 kiddo, who is going to rule the world. You should just know that. An Enneagram 8 is someone that has a strong leadership instinct. Also, as a mother, I found it really challenging to parent someone that has a strong leadership instinct, that when she's about 8 years of age, she's ready to tell me how to do things. Or at 11, she was telling my guests in my home that they were wrong about their opinions or various things. And she blew me out of the water, because as a 2, I knew that relationally that wouldn't make other people feel good. So why would she be doing that? But for me to understand her as an Enneagram 8, it actually helped me understand her more. So not just helping my kids learn, but also helping my kids learn how to be in the world. I think Enneagram helps with building healthy relationships, as I've shared before. Really helps us to recognize how we're communicating, what's valuable. I'm married to a 1. He's pretty concrete. He's logical. He gets stuff done. And he sees the process, the long-term process, how things should move in order for whatever to be accomplished. The end goal can be accomplished because of these 12 things, and we could do it this way. And when in relationship, his approach to say, going on a trip with the kids, his approach might be, okay, 9 o'clock, we said we would leave, so now we're going to leave. And me, I'm a 2. So I'm like, you know what? First of all, I'm a 2-wing 1 in my unhealthy space. So my earlier days, I would be like, okay, yes, let's make sure everybody's feeling good and they have what they need and they've been attended to. And that might not be at 9 o'clock sharp that we'll be leaving then. But my 2-wing 1 side, the 1 was like, and first the house needs to be clean. And so combine that with somebody that wants to leave sharp at 9, that was a conflict. And so, understanding why he's motivated that way, understanding why I'm motivated that way, helps to, at the very least, bring us together to understanding each other more. Still not my default to do anything at 9 o'clock sharp or anywhere 9 o'clock sharp, except coaching, because I really love that. But and it's still, and he still would love it if we would leave at 9 o'clock sharp, but probably it's 9:02. And he, 25 years in, gets it most times. No, also we can manage our time and energy better if we learn our Enneagram type. If you're a 2, if you identify as a 2, possibly a 6, and definitely a 9 as an Enneagram type, you're going to discover that your natural penchant is to paying attention to relationships and what people need, and not to notice what you need. You'll be more out there with other people wanting to help them and support them. That's why I'm here. I love doing what I'm doing. It really does fuel me. I feel like it's a very purposeful part of my life to be able to take all the really challenging stuff that I've had at different times to, having had a very strong season of having to grow. I always will grow, but a very strong season where I knew that I had a lot to grow in and learn, and had many, many journeys in that. And now I feel like I've had the opportunity over the last 4 years, 5 years, to share my story and share the tools that I've learned so that I can help other people, support them to shed what's not working so they can show up authentically, confidently, and purposefully. And so it's been a real joy to do that. But I love the work. I also have to manage my own time and energy because my instinct is to take care of other people, whether I'm homeschooling or whether I'm coaching. And so then I have to ask myself, is this realistic? What responsibilities do I have toward myself? And that's something that I know is a necessity because I know I'm an Enneagram 2. And if I was a 9, which I know many people are that are around me, I don't know what it is, but I attract a lot of 9s, then I know that to be a reality for you as well. And the last thing that I have learned about why I think Enneagram is so important to address our challenges is probably one of the first things you thought of, is that if we are learning to be more self-aware and to growing in our personal journeys, building our own sense of emotional awareness or intelligence, we're demonstrating that to our kids. We're helping to set an example for them naturally. We're teaching them how to relate to others and problem solve and communicate and be resilient and all the things. And just finishing up the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman today. And I am reminded once again why emotional intelligence is so very important, why we need to grow in it ourselves, also why it's necessary for us to create a space in our regular homeschool practices to engage discussions around that with our kids. So that's why I think it's so important. Now that I've told you why I think it's so important, let's talk about the types. What's the point of this all? You're going to find more value when you actually understand to what I am even speaking. So I will give you a very brief overview of the 9 types here. Okay. Type 1 is known as the reformer. They are perfectionistic, principled. They strive for improvement and correctness. They often set high standards for themselves and others. Type 2 is the helper, warm and nurturing. They seek to support and care for others. They thrive on creating meaningful connections and being self-sacrificing. Type 3 is the achiever, driven and success-oriented. 3s are motivated by accomplishment. They're often goal-focused, adaptable, and image-conscious. Type 4s are the individualist. They're expressive and unique. 4s are in touch with their emotions. They seek authenticity. They can be introspective, creative, and may struggle with feelings of inadequacy. Type 5 is the investigator, analytical and perceptive. They value knowledge and understanding. They tend to be reserved, preferring to be observationalists or observers, and they conserve energy. So they are probably not a social butterfly. Type 6 is the loyalist, security-oriented and responsible. They're loyal. They seek safety. They can be cautious, questioning, and may experience anxiety. Type 7 is the enthusiast. I've got one of these in my home. So much fun. She's fun-loving and spontaneous. She seeks joy in whatever she does, new experiences. She just went to New York City. She can be optimistic and imaginative. She definitely avoids discomfort at all costs. Type 8 is the challenger, assertive and protective. 8s are strong-willed and value control. They often seek justice, and their leadership style can be direct and assertive. And type 9 is the peacemaker, easygoing and accommodating. 9s seek harmony and peace. They can be complacent, but adaptable, and they might struggle with inertia. Each type obviously brings strengths and challenges, growth challenges, I call it, and understanding those distinctions helps people understand more about other people, about others' behaviors and motivations, and as well your own. And if you're on camera, you're welcome to share your thoughts or put it into the chat. But if you're not on camera, would you, if you're willing, would you share what your first thoughts are on what your type is and why? And if you didn't catch that, that's okay too, because you will have the recording to listen again. And in my experience, as we were just sharing before the conversation began, one of the moms was saying that she tried testing. And I repeatedly share, you don't need to buy a test. I mean, just don't. You can figure it out over the course of time, and tests usually give pretty wonky answers. They'll tell you that you could be a 2, but also a 5 and a 7, which according to Enneagram isn't a thing. You're either one type, and sometimes in your healthier state, you head toward another type, or unhealthy state, you go to a different type, but you aren't going to be 3 or 2. You're going to be 1. You're going to be mostly motivated in a certain direction. So I'm curious if anybody wants to share their thoughts. Yes, Michelle, I'm a type 2 wing 1. Scary how accurate it is. Yes, that's how you know, by the way, that you're like, actually, oftentimes people will say, you know, you are an Enneagram type when you say to yourself, I don't want to be that one. That one does not sound good. Then yeah, that's yours. And Julia, yeah, these were free tests, but totally understand. Yep, even if they're free tests aren't as effective as you getting to know you and understanding where your core motivation comes from. So how about you, Susie? What would you think?
Well, I'm pretty sure I'm about 3 of them.
Oh,
So I
wow.
don't know. Like, I'm for sure a peacemaker, but I'm also a number 2.
Yeah.
But I'm also very much a loyalist too.
Hmm.
I have all three of them, but I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, and not surprising that all of those definitely embody the coaching world in my experience.
Yeah,
Yeah, although I do know an 8 who's a coach, and she's such a strong leader. She's new
yeah,
in her business, and I can see she's such a strong presence already. But yeah, I can see that there being some overlap there. We should explore that more. So
yeah,
I
sure.
think, yeah, core motivation is rather helpful. Okay, so, but you know what? So these Enneagram types have benefits for you. When you identify what your core motivation is, you're really helping understand your child. So rather than seeing your child or your partner, whatever relationship you're engaging, you're actually learning how to see other people as just different, motivated differently. They're not good, they're not bad, they're just different. It helps you to recognize that when, say, you're leaving for, soccer practice and they want to go to soccer, but not today. And they're kind of slowing down behind you, and you say, go get your soccer cleats. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know where it is. And I can't find it. And I don't know if I feel like going today. I just need quiet, or I need something. If you know that they're an Enneagram 9 motivation, they might be someone that just needs a heavy need for a lot of quiet and re-energizing. Now, note to self, people will say not to type your kids because they're growing and they're changing. And it's true. I have noticed, at least the Myers-Briggs testing that I've done with my kids when they were younger, the girls did tend to all have exactly the same personality as me, except my oldest, because she was always distinct. But my second and my third were mirroring me. They're not anymore now that they're adult. And yet my youngest has always been asserting, he's only 15, but he asserts, Mom, I am a 1, just like Dad. And the longer that I'm hanging out with him, I'm like, yeah, he is. He is. So, take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes you can determine what their Enneagram types are, and sometimes you cannot. But it certainly does help you to notice their natural tendencies or their patterns, the way they think, the way they experience other people, or how they behave. Um, and it also helps you to understand how to guide them or coach them. It helps you to understand how you show up in stress. Because guess what? We twos show up in stress like an 8. So we get all bossy and forceful and speaking like we think. And yeah, so Susie, you relate with me in there.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think I had that conversation with you, Michelle, at some point in the last couple of weeks here in the support group. And it is definitely something I recoil. I'm like, no, I'm soft and I'm kind, but actually, no, there's times where, actually, funny enough, I'm having a conversation with somebody yesterday about teenage boys, or was it Wednesday? And how sometimes they just say what they think and they're not thinking about what they're saying. Well, oh my, I'm so glad I have so much husband training over the last 2 decades, 2.5 decades, and we've had so much relationship building, because now with my 15-year-old son, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's just being very black and white and concrete, but I would love him to have an infusion of my Enneagram type 9 kiddo who knows how to be soft and diplomatic, and turns out he's not like that instinctively. And so then it helps me to understand where he's coming from, rather than just taking offense that he's being too black and white. I'm curious if you want to share in the comments or the chat what your experience is, if you do know Enneagram types or suspect that either your partner or one of your kids has a different type, what your experience is with that type. And I'll give you some time as I continue, and I will return to that chat. Certainly, we react differently in stress when we are different Enneagram types. We have different stress triggers, but we can work towards growth, recognizing where we naturally go and actually saying, okay, how do I build in some gentle accountability? Perhaps I need to do some digging into why this matters to me in this, this relationship dynamic, or why something's bothering me. It can be a useful tool for your personal development. It also helps you understand your defense mechanisms, why you get angry, or why you withdraw, or why you need a load of quiet time, or why you don't want a verbal process, or why you definitely do. It certainly is a pathway to growth. This is how I see it. It's just a really useful tool to understand people and to grow. Did you want to share, Susie, anything that you've learned about relationships, or, other Enneagram types in relationship, or if anybody else wants to share something in the chat?
Yeah, so this is it's quite interesting. I've never really come across this before I talked to you. So is it possible to be two, or is it like I'm not understanding how to place myself, right?
Yeah, it's not possible to be two according to the Enneagram folk.
You're one
And
or the other, and whatever it could be a reaction to something. Like, for example, I think I'm a helper, but I'm also a person who needs my peace and quiet majorly.
yeah,
So that's the peacemaker.
yeah. Well, I think the peace and quiet is like a behavior, so it's not really relegated to an Enneagram type. And
Okay.
I also need it as a two. And I hover as an extrovert or an introvert. I'm like kind of down the middle. And I can literally do anything. I could show up in a big crowd, or I could also show up in a quiet space. But the introversion versus extroversion isn't relegated to a particular Enneagram
Okay.
type. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah.
What I've learned is the more time you spend with, there's YouTube videos, really clever, funny ones, or lots of books. There's a book called Road Back to You, which I'm going to mention toward the end. But there's many different tools that you can use to learn more about Enneagram. Podcasts. That's one of my favorite, of course. I listen to more podcasts than I create, for sure. I probably like 15 podcasts a week, which I probably should not say that. I am obviously not as busy as everybody else in the way you're busy. I'm very busy actually, but not busy in the way that you're busy. But I find podcasts really useful tools to learn. There's a lot of really great content on podcast. So Enneagram types obviously contribute to better communication in the family and empathy. And I think that might be the biggest one for me. Even as a two, I mean, that's my strong suit, is empathy. It is why people tell me on routine that that's why they join me for coaching, is because of the first conversation with me. They're like, I resonated with you. I felt seen, heard, and understood. I've heard that so many times. Also, that I have a soothing voice. My children don't agree, but they've heard my eight side probably. But I think that's a classic two thing. And yet I still naturally, instinctively see people that are not of the heart type. I'll explain that concept later. But the twos are of a heart type, empathic. And I think the whole world should be empathic. So that's my truth. My instinct is to say, be empathic. It will serve the world. But
Yeah, that
also, yeah, you see that too, Susie?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
about it, if there was no achievers either, I think it wouldn't be a good world either, right?
Yes.
I don't know. My husband is for sure. And it's a good thing, right? Because he's had to go out and make a living. And if I had to go out and make a living, I would have a heart. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, I've certainly seen my husband too. He's a process kind of guy, so he's always planning for the future. And like he was the guy, he was the chief of staff at our local hospital. He was about to retire from that role before the pandemic, and then they said, "Would you please stay on?" And he was remarkable in that role, and he kept things going, and he made sure to see what's the next thing we need to anticipate. And he was, connecting with the clean or the people that were doing the cleaning, and he was also connecting with like everybody, but he was always anticipating what's the next thing we need to do, not just connecting with people, but like that's definitely not his natural bent, is that connecting. He's learned that from me, but that's probably true. But when it comes to process, he's always like, what's the next step? And that's not me. I'm just, I get lost in conversation. I'm like, hey, let's chit chat one-on-one. Let's just like get deep, go present, go, just like I am right now. So I
Yeah,
think
that's what I'm doing, and he's doing what he's doing, right? And it,
exactly, the world needs to go together and recognize that we all have different things to bring.
yeah, and sometimes I wonder, male and female, right? God created us to
Somewhat.
be
Yeah.
nurturers, right?
Except except that the 8 is, if you look at an Enneagram 8 as a male or a female, like as an 8, we kind of take it for granted that those are certain character traits of a male because they're very strong, but I actually know a lot of Enneagram 8s as a female, and that's not how we classically think as a feminized quality. So actually, based on the Enneagram type, it doesn't necessarily manifest the same way. However, you'll hear a lot of men that are 1 5s and 8s, and you'll hear a lot of women that are 3 6 or 2 6s and 9s, and 3s are kind of down the middle. Did you say your husband is a 3 or a 1?
I think he's a 3. He's not like that 9 o'clock. We have to leave. I'm more like that than he is. He's kind of like whenever we get there, right? But he's a definite. He's got a plan, and he's gonna he's gonna get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's great. Yeah, we need that too.
yeah.
I'm actually a 2 wing 3 in my healthy space, so there is an element discussion on Enneagram. For me, and this is not a statement, by the way, of Michelle. A 2 wing 1 is where I was in my unhealthy space. That doesn't mean you're in an unhealthy space because you're 2 wing 1. Different people have different wings, and what that means, if you haven't heard the concept of wing, imagine a butterfly. The main part of the body is your Enneagram type. And on either side, you tend to be healthier on one side and less healthy on the other side. So for me, 2 wing 1 meant that I took care of people in an unhealthy way. I was always anticipating their needs and trying to rescue them, or, so many possibilities there, and also be very unaware of my own self and not taking care of myself. And whereas for me in the 2 wing 3 space, that's why I'm showing up publicly everywhere, and why I'm not afraid to say, here, this is what I offer. Would you like this? And also I'm comfortable with the idea of someone saying, no, thank you. So, or yes, please. I'm okay with that because of my 3 side. Um, so learning about wings is also a useful element of the Enneagram type. Does anyone have any thoughts or anything? Oh, I see the chat. I will pay attention. Michelle, I freak my husband out when I can easily read a room and know when things are wrong within a few seconds or words with a person. I am also an empath. Amen, sister. Yeah, that's why, Michelle, I said that actually my husband has learned a lot from me too. Yes, you too. Okay, now I'm curious. If I remember correctly, I actually think that everybody here has the same Myers-Briggs personality profile. Is everyone, I'll just say it this way. I am an INFJ, and I know for sure one of you is an INFJ, but yes, Julia, you are an INFJ too. Okay. Oh, funny. I should just call myself the INFJ group. Because you are as well, Susie, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And Michelle, do you happen to know? Yeah. That's so funny. Okay, that's hilarious. Because usually I'm actually meeting more Enneagram type 2, but there's an awful lot of type 9s that I work with. It's almost like wild for me to go, what? You're kidding, right? You're a 9? Not, I've got a rare type 1 and occasional type 5. Yeah, I thought we were rare too, but actually we found each other. You're welcome. Okay. Did you want to share something too, Susie?
No, no, I haven't got that Myers-Briggs thing, like the 16 personalities. I did that. And then I actually did the test of it.
Yeah.
And they didn't send me what I actually ended up being. So what did you tell me I was?
Well, I don't know for sure. I will leave that for yourself to discover, but an INFJ maybe?
So I'm looking that up. INFJ.
Yeah, that part I'm not as comfortable describing.
Yeah, I'm probably an INFPA. I
Okay. Yeah.
think I'm being what I am.
Now you are the unique one here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That then, yeah.
that's fine.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, if I take the test tomorrow, I'm probably an ENFJ. If I take the test on Sunday, maybe I'm an INFJ. So it goes back and forth for me.
What you're in.
Yeah, it totally depends. Yeah. I find this really useful, personality profiling stuff. And it's not just because I'm like you, Michelle. I'm like, I want to read the room. Okay, I'll tell you a secret, which is not a secret. I'll tell you a secret. I like watching The Bachelor. Shh. I would be horrified if my kids were on The Bachelor, to be truthful. But I like to figure out who and why they're connecting. So that's how much I like reading the room. I like reading, I like hanging out with people. I'm genuinely curious about people. And yet I'm also like trying to understand what are the dynamics that are bringing someone together, or what is the thing that somebody's drawn to, or, that kind of stuff. That's who I am at core. And like you, Michelle, I'm a read the room kind of gal. In fact, I actually, the random political statement here, but back in 2001, I told my husband, was it 99 or 2001? We were watching the news together on TV when we did those things. And I saw a picture of the new Russian president. And I told my husband, I'm like, that guy's seriously sketchy. I don't know about that guy. That's pretty interesting. He's like, I don't know. People say he's pretty capable of the job. He's KGB. Anywho,
Yeah.
we'll leave politics and to come back to Enneagram. Always risky, aren't I? Going into politics? Don't do it. So let's see here. Chat room. Yeah, Julia, you're laughing with me. That's awesome. Michelle, I'm bouncing between 2 and 4. I was totally a 4 as a teen, but I feel like more like a 2 nowadays. Is one, yeah, I have answered or asked that same question. Is one of or the other more prone to INFJ? I would love to know that too. And the same thing with, I should really do if there, or check to see if there's actual research around the male versus female in different Enneagram types, because certainly it seems like it would be more likely, and I don't know. The 4, though, it's interesting. You would think that many teenagers were 4s, because 4s are, well, not many, but it's at least how I would have described myself, is very creative and moody and very, reactive as a teenage girl, and journaling all the time and writing beautiful artistic things and keeping a quote journal. And they're very creative and very introspective, and can on the outside be seen as moody, but it's also not a surprising teenage girl trait. Yes, I was so melancholy. Eeyore. I love that. Romeo and Juliet was so romantic. It really was. Yeah. Eeyore. That's so funny. Uh, let's see here. So I could give you, by the way, even just for fun, I can give you a little bit of an assessment to discover your type, and we can discuss why they matter. Huh, interesting. Infographic shows INFJ with 4 and ENFJ with 2. Interesting. That is interesting. Thank you. So Enneagram self-assessment, really brief, really simple. So what you can do if you've got a pen is, just be as honest as you can with yourself. You don't even have to tell me what your thoughts are. Go with your initial gut reaction because it's probably right. From a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not at all, 5 being very much, answer these questions. And this will be the simplest Enneagram self-assessment you have ever seen. So the first question is, I strive for perfection in everything I do. So 1 is not at all, 5 is very much. Second question, I enjoy helping and supporting others. Third question, success and achievement are important to me. Fourth question, I value individuality and authenticity. Fifth question, knowledge and understanding are crucial to me. Sixth question, I seek security and like to plan for the future. Seventh question, I love experiencing new things and avoid boredom. Eighth question, I am assertive and enjoy taking charge. And ninth question is I prefer harmony and avoid conflict. So you can total your scores. And the highest total obviously indicates the Enneagram type. And the Enneagram type to the number of the question, because type 1 is number 1, the reformer. You have a strong desire for order and you strive for perfection in everything you do. Type 2 is the helper, and you have a tendency to prioritize others' needs and you enjoy helping and supporting others. Type 3 is the achiever. You focus on success and achievement. And Type 4 is the individualist. You have a strong desire for uniqueness and you value individuality and authenticity. Type 5 is the investigator. You have a preference for knowledge and understanding. It's your focus. You can probably do some serious deep dives or rabbit holes and not come out the other side having any concrete plans, but knowing everything about ... And type 6 is the loyalist. You tend toward wanting security. You're certainly like one of the best friends on the Enneagram because you're so loyal. You plan for the future. Type 7 is the enthusiast. You love new experiences and new things, and you do not like boredom. Type 8 is the challenger. You prefer assertiveness. You have no problem with conflict and you enjoy taking charge. Type 9 is the peacemaker. You prefer harmony, avoiding conflict, and you have a high need for reclaiming your energy. So remember, this is just a very baseline starting point, and you would definitely want to explore Enneagram further to get more of a clarity. And I really do think that the tests can help, you understand you, but your gut instinct is more important than any test tells you. And frankly, I would add, the more self-aware you are, the clearer and more, confident you'll be in this Enneagram type. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts?
It's going to be interesting to delve in this a little bit. I'm looking forward to learning more about it, actually.
I think I'm going to do Enneagram workshop 201 at some point. I certainly always over prepare and have far more to discuss and engage than time is my experience. And also because I speak about it all the time, I think especially those that I'm coaching need to hear what the heck all this is about anyway, and why I'm focusing on it. But yeah, I find it a super useful tool, and certainly satisfies my curiosity to try and understand the world, try and understand relationships and how people connect, and understand what matters to them. If you want to learn more about Enneagram, I encourage you to check out The Road Back to You by Ian Morgan Cron. The last name is Cron. It's funny, and it's got a lot of great advice. There's also The Wisdom of the Enneagram by a fellow named Don Richard Riso, Riso, and Russ Hudson. It's easy to find online tests, no question. I really don't think you need to spend money on it. I listened to a couple of podcasts, and I can't remember what their names are, but if you're interested, I can grab those, let you know what those are. Certainly there's lots of courses and workshops out there. Here I'm sharing a workshop on Enneagram, and there are loads of Enneagram coaches out there, YouTube channels. Sometimes there's YouTube videos that they're really funny. First of all, they're very entertaining, but there's Enneagram 2 at Valentine's Day or Enneagram 7 at Valentine's Day. They're pretty funny, and yet they focus on behavior, and the behaviors are really not the focus of Enneagram. It certainly is entertainment, but it's not really the focus. And the behaviors aren't always accurate when you're watching those videos, but I just find it funny. There's even an app for Enneagram, of course.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's always an app. There's actually there's a few apps for homeschooling in general, but I have not ever seen one that anybody resorts to, because I think we tend to want real person stuff or real people's experiences. It's interesting to me. So does anybody have any questions or have any thoughts before I wrap up for today? Anything that you'd like to discuss in further workshops? And by the way, this is something I do in the Self-Compassion Group Coaching Program and the Building Boundaries Group Coaching Program, is talking about Enneagram, because our relationships are so important. They really help us to feel secure, attached, ourselves as full-grown adults, to feel secure, attached, and connected. And we need that as homeschool moms. And actually my reel, which I was putting together right before our conversation here, is about relationships in the homeschool, and our partnered relationships, and how understanding each other is so important. Something that I think really does get short shrift: PMS, perimenopause, and also sex. But anyways, that's a different discussion point. I actually talk about that in my book, much to my children's chagrin. Who knew that they would read my book? I assumed that they wouldn't. But anyways, that, and also this marriage discussion, I definitely think those things need to be more of a discussion in the homeschool community. Yeah, I'm so glad, Michelle. And I hope you have a really great week, and you can keep that hockey rink cold. I guess you've got indoor hockey rinks, but so the kids can keep skating. It was such a delight having everybody here, and please send me any messages if you want me to focus in a different direction for a workshop here in the Homeschool Mama support group. But it was such a pleasure hanging out today.
Thanks for having us, Teresa. I learned a lot. It
Beautiful.
piqued my interest.
Excellent. Well, let me know too. And I've said this before, but I really do want to hear what kind of workshops you'd be curious about. How do you know I'm Canadian? So lovely. I hope everybody has a beautiful week, and I will see you soon.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.